locked a baby outside and had the key. Was this planned or something worse?
She's outside! She's actually outside! I screamed, slamming my fists against the glass as my baby's cries tore through the night. And he didn't move. We were in our kitchen, the back door locked, my 6-month-old on the patio, in the cold, and my husband just stood there like this was normal. He said it was a lesson, that she needed to learn not to cry for attention. And his mother, sitting at the table like nothing was wrong, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Leave her there." I tried the handle again, harder, but it wouldn't budge, and that's when I realized he had the key. Then he stepped in front of me, calm, blocking the door completely, and said something that made my stomach drop. Because in that moment, I understood this wasn't about the baby at all. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Because in that moment, I understood this wasn't about the baby at all. This was about me. "Move," I said, my voice shaking, trying to push past him. But Daniel didn't raise his voice, didn't argue, he just stood there, steady, like a wall I wasn't supposed to get through. His eyes didn't even flick toward the door anymore. He was watching me instead. "You always do this," he said quietly. "You escalate. You panic. It's not healthy." Behind him, Margaret let out a soft sigh, like I was exhausting her. "A child cries," she said, folding her hands neatly on the table. "It doesn't mean you run every time. You're teaching her to control you." Another sharp cry cut through the air, higher this time, thinner. My stomach twisted so hard I felt sick. "She's cold," I snapped. "She's 6 months old. Daniel, she doesn't even understand what's happening." He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "Exactly, which is why this is the best time to teach her." Something in the way he said it, calm, practiced, made my chest tighten. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't frustration. This felt planned. I pounded the glass again, harder, the sound echoing through the kitchen. "Give me the key." No. One word. Flat, final. Margaret's chair scraped softly as she stood, walking closer but not toward the door, toward him, toward his side. "She needs to see consequences," she added. "And frankly, so do you." The baby's cries hitched just for a second, and that tiny break in the sound sent pure panic shooting through me. I grabbed the nearest chair, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. "Don't," Daniel said, sharper now. "If you break that door, you prove everything we've been saying." I froze for half a second, heart pounding, then tightened my grip anyway, because something told me this wasn't the first line they were planning to cross, and if I didn't stop it right now, I didn't know how far they were willing to go. I didn't sleep that night, not even after I got her back. Sophia stayed pressed against my chest, her tiny body still trembling, long after her cries had faded into weak whimpers. I sat on the edge of the bed, fully awake, staring at the door like it might open again, like he might come in and decide something else needed to be taught. Daniel never apologized. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. Coffee brewing, news playing, same routine. He even asked if I wanted toast. I just stood there, holding Sophia, watching him like I didn't recognize him anymore. Margaret, though, she didn't pretend. "You overreacted," she said calmly, stirring her tea. "Breaking the door? That was unnecessary." I felt something tighten in my chest. She was outside, in the cold. "She was crying," Margaret corrected. "That's not the same thing." Daniel didn't look up from his phone. "We need consistency," he added. "You can't just undermine everything every time you feel uncomfortable." Undermine, like I had disrupted something structured, something agreed upon. I looked between them, waiting for even a flicker of doubt, but there was none. Just this quiet certainty, like they were both operating on the same page, and I hadn't been invited to read it. That's when I started noticing the smaller things. Conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. Margaret whispering to Daniel in the kitchen, their voices dropping the second I got close. Articles open on his laptop about early behavioral conditioning and parental authority dynamics. And the way they talked about Sophia, never times two times her, always times about times her. Like she was something to manage. Shape, correct. One night, I walked in just as Margaret said, "If she keeps interfering, the child will never adapt." Daniel replied without hesitation, "Then we make sure she stops interfering." They both went silent when they saw me. I didn't ask what they meant. I just nodded slowly, like I hadn't heard anything, and walked away. But later that night, when they thought I was asleep, I sat in the dark with my phone in my hand recording. Because something in this house had shifted, and I wasn't the only one they were trying to control anymore. Then, a few days later, Daniel looked at me across the table and said, almost casually, "You don't get to decide how this child is raised alone." And Margaret, without missing a beat, added quietly, "Sometimes mothers need to be corrected." By that afternoon, it was already building again. Sophia wouldn't settle for her nap. Nothing unusual. She was teething, restless, fussy. I rocked her gently in the nursery, humming under my breath, waiting for her breathing to slow. From the doorway, Daniel watched. "You're doing it again," he said. I didn't turn around. "She's in pain. She's manipulating you." That word again. I felt it land heavier this time. "She's 6 months old," I said, sharper now. "She doesn't even know what that means." Behind him, Margaret's voice floated in, calm and deliberate. "Children learn patterns faster than you think." I finally turned, tightening my hold on Sophia. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Daniel stepped into the room, slow, controlled, that we stop responding every time she cries. We let her adjust. "She's not adjusting," I said. "She's distressed." Margaret crossed her arms. "Distress is part of growth." The room felt smaller suddenly, tighter, like the walls were closing in around a conversation I didn't agree to have. "I'm not doing that," I said. "Not with her." There was a pause, brief but heavy. Then Daniel nodded once, too easily. "All right." That should have felt like relief. It didn't. Because he didn't argue, didn't push, just accepted it and walked away. Margaret followed him, but not before giving me a look something unreadable, almost measuring. And under her breath, just loud enough for me to catch, she said, "She'll break eventually." I stood there, frozen. Sophia still in my arms. I didn't know who she meant. That night, everything felt off. Too quiet, too controlled. Sophia started crying again just after dinner, sharp, sudden. I moved immediately, instinct kicking in, but before I could reach the hallway, Daniel stepped in front of me. "I'll handle it." "No," I said quickly. "She needs..." I said, "I'll handle it." There was no room in his tone this time. He walked past me, already heading toward the back door, instead of the nursery. My stomach dropped. "Daniel, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. I followed, heart starting to pound, just in time to see him open the back door, step outside, and place her down. For half a second, I couldn't move. Then he stepped back inside, and I heard the lock click. I lunged forward, but he was already turning the key in his hand, slipping it into his pocket, like this was routine. "Daniel, open it. Now." He didn't. Behind me, Margaret's voice came, steady and cold. "Leave her there." Sophia's cries pierced through the glass, louder now, panicked, and as I grabbed the handle, pulling harder, realizing it wouldn't open, Daniel looked straight at me and said, "If you interfere again, you're only proving our point." The glass shattered louder than I expected. For a split second, everything froze. The sound, the air, even them. Then the cold rushed in, and I was already climbing through, barely feeling the sting as I grabbed Sophia off the patio. She was shaking, her cries broken and breathless against my shoulder. "I've got you," I whispered, over and over, my voice trembling. "I've got you." Behind me, Daniel didn't rush to help. He didn't even step closer. "What did you just do?" he said, his tone flat but tight underneath. I turned back toward him, clutching her. "What did times you times do?" My voice cracked. "She's a baby!" Margaret stepped forward slowly, her expression unreadable. "You've just confirmed it," she said. "This level of hysteria, it's not safe." "Hysteria?" I repeated, disbelief hitting harder than the cold air still pouring in through the broken door. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing now but not toward us. Away, like we were the problem. "You escalated a controlled situation," he said. "You made it dangerous." "She was already in danger," I shot back. But he shook his head, almost like he was disappointed. "This is exactly why I've been documenting things." That word again. Documenting. Something inside me went still. Margaret nodded. "We may need to consider what's best for the child long term." I felt it then, not just fear, but clarity, sharp and undeniable. This wasn't about parenting. It wasn't even about control in the moment. They were building something, and I was standing right in the middle of it. Later that night, after they'd both gone to bed, I sat alone in the dark, Sophia finally asleep against my chest. My hands were still shaking as I reached for my phone. The recording was still running. I hadn't even realized I'd started it earlier, but there it was, hours long. I hit play. At first, it was just background noise, movement, faint voices. Then clearer, Daniel's voice. "She reacts every time. It's predictable." Margaret, quieter. Then push it further. "She needs to break pattern." A pause. Then him again, lower, this time focused. "If she breaks, we win." My breath caught. The audio shifted footsteps, the door, Sophia crying. My own voice, panicked. Their responses, every word, every second, proof, not just of what they did, but why they did it. I stopped the recording, staring at the screen. Because now I understood something I hadn't let myself admit before. If I stayed, I would lose her. And they were counting on it. By morning, I had already made the decision. And 10 years later, sitting in that courtroom, watching the judge open that sealed file, I realized something else. They never thought I'd keep it, and they definitely didn't think I'd use it. The judge's expression shifted as he read, then listened. He looked up slowly, and the room went completely silent. The first few seconds of the audio were quiet, just movement, a chair scraping, the low hum of the house. Then Daniel's voice came through the courtroom speakers, clear, unfiltered. "She reacts every time. It's predictable." No one moved. Margaret followed, softer but unmistakable. Then push it further. "She needs to break pattern." I didn't look at them. I didn't need to. The judge's eyes stayed on the file, his expression tightening slightly as the recording continued. "If she breaks," Daniel said, calm and certain, "we win." A pause, then the sound that filled the room next. My daughter crying. Not loud at first, just confused. Then sharper, panicked. In the courtroom, someone shifted uncomfortably. A pen dropped somewhere in the back. And then my voice, desperate, shaking, begging them to open the door. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Me panics. Their control? Margaret again. "Leave her there." "Daniel, she needs to learn." The judge lifted his hand slightly. "That's enough." The audio cut. Silence swallowed the room whole. For a moment, no one spoke. Daniel stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, like he was trying to hold on to something that had already slipped. Margaret's posture had changed, still upright, but rigid now, her confidence replaced with something brittle. The judge leaned back, exhaling slowly as he removed his glasses. This was not a parenting disagreement, he said finally. This was a deliberate act. No one interrupted him. He looked directly at Daniel. You locked an infant outside, then at Margaret. And you encouraged it. Neither of them responded. The shift was complete. The story they walked in with, the one where I was unstable, where I had taken a child without reason, collapsed in seconds. There is also clear evidence, the judge continued, tapping the file lightly, of premeditation and intent to provoke a reaction for future legal advantage. That part hung heavier than anything else, because it meant exactly what it sounded like. They hadn't just done it, they planned it. This court finds no basis for your claim, he said firmly. Petition dismissed. A breath I didn't realize I'd been holding finally left my chest, but he wasn't finished. I am referring this matter for further review, he added, including potential charges related to child endangerment. Daniel's head snapped slightly at that. Margaret's hand tightened on the table. Consequences. Real ones. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, clear, open, quiet, in a way I hadn't felt in years. I walked down the steps without looking back. Elena. Daniel's voice followed me, strained now, stripped of that calm control he used to wear so easily. I didn't stop. Elena, wait. I kept walking. Whatever he had to say, explanations, excuses, revisions of the story, it didn't matter anymore. He'd already said everything that counted. 10 years ago, on a recording he never thought I'd keep. By the time I reached my car, my hands were steady. When I got home, the house was quiet, except for the soft sound of movement upstairs. A door opened, then quick footsteps. Mom? Sophia stood at the top of the stairs. 10 years old now, but in that moment, I saw flashes of the baby I'd pulled into my arms that night. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. She searched my face. Is it over? There was a brief pause, not hesitation, just the weight of everything finally settling into place. Then I nodded. Yes, I said. It's over. Her shoulders dropped slightly, the tension easing in a way that told me she understood more than she ever said out loud. And for the first time in a long time, there was nothing left hanging over us. No voices behind doors. No quiet plans. No one watching, waiting for me to break. They thought they were building a case against me, but all they really did was leave behind the proof that ended theirs.
If you had that recording, would you forgive them or expose them too?